Hello, everybody, and happy mid-April, and welcome to More Layers. I'm Seth Mariano.
And I'm Jordan Smith, and I don't know where all our viewers live, but around here we have some lovely weather finally.
Yeah. Well, like I was just saying, it's kind of humid though. It's hot. It's been like in the 80s past couple days, right?
70s, 80s, yeah, which is definitely a nice change of pace because for a while we couldn't get out of what felt like the 30s for the longest time. But yeah, we've had a nice stretch, and there haven't been too many clouds, so the sun has been beaten down, which has its hits and misses, but just the fact that we can actually see it for once is a wonderful change of pace.
We could debate this whole weather thing is because of climate change, but for the sake of time and other things, we should probably not get into that today.
Yeah, that is a whole separate conversation.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we're going to start off today with something. I was running low on ideas, and I came across an article. I think it's from Forbes magazine because it's got the Forbes name and the link, and I'll put up the link in the description later. But and so they made a list of top states people are moving away from and states that people are moving to. So well, we could maybe discuss some of these states a little bit and count them down slowly, and and we'll start with um, the top 12 list of states people are moving away from, and at number 12 is Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pennsylvania, I don't know too many people personally from there. I mean, I know some of my father's side of the family is there. Maybe they could have a better take on this, but I'm honestly not surprised because I looked at the article myself and we'll go into further detail, I'm sure. But one thing I noticed is that most of the states in this article, especially that people are moving away from, are in the northern half of the US.
Yeah, that's something I didn't really think about. Um, Pennsylvania, yeah, yeah, I've got a pretty good familiarity with the place. I know I have maternal relatives there. It's where my mom's originally from, so I've visited there quite a few times. And I will tell you from experience, there are some hilly roads.
Okay.
So I thought maybe that might be a factor in some people's reasoning behind moving out, but I don't know. Maybe not.
Well, it's entirely possible. I know in some places in Pennsylvania, places like Philadelphia, especially, are known for high crime rates. So they may also want to get away from that.
It's one of the more famous like inner city areas, like downtown or whatever, Philadelphia. I from what I understand, I don't know. I've kind of passed through Philly a little bit, and it looks kind of like a rundown sort of industrial environment. So that does make plenty of sense to me.
Sure. And I'm sure with many states, the reason could be something economical. It could be crime rates. It could be some other political reason, but I won't touch up on that too much.
So something I wanted to ask you, was your love for the Philly Eagles kind of rooted in your Pennsylvanian family roots?
No, for those that don't know, I my favorite NFL team is the Philadelphia Eagles, and I have been for about 20-ish years. But the reason for that honestly has nothing to do with family. The biggest reason was that when I was about 6, 7 years old, my family had a copy of Madden 2002 for the GameCube. And keep in mind, this is 6-year-old me. I was looking through the logos of each team and I saw the one for the Eagles, and I'm like, oh, that looks cool. So I started playing with them a lot, and it just kind of naturally developed into them being my favorite team.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I've probably talked about this before, but I also have a an old edition of the Madden NFL series, an old installment. I've got the '07 version, which has Seahawks running back, or then Seahawks running back Sean Alexander on the cover. And yeah, so I don't think you're really that alone. I mean, like back in the day, they, the team on your cover probably wasn't the best, and maybe the one on my cover wasn't either. But so it is. I don't know. I guess you're not really alone.
Well, sure. I don't remember who was on my cover, and I have it somewhere in this room, but I won't worry about trying to find it right now. But I'm pretty sure that the player on the cover was from the Rams. Either that or the Vikings, one of the two.
Oh, I thought you said there was an eagle.
No, my favorite team is the Eagles, and when I was looking through the logos when we were picking teams in the game, I saw the Eagles logo and thought it looked cool.
Oh, oh, okay.
Yeah, so the cover was a different team, but the
Yeah.
logo that piqued my interest after booting it up was the Eagles.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and then number 11, state people are reportedly moving away from North Dakota, which I guess shouldn't be too surprising. I think North Dakota, I thought, well, Fargo, there's that movie or that show with a lot of the snow.
Right.
So, yeah, yeah. And I hear people complain repeatedly about snow and winter, so I don't know if I should be too surprised.
Well, yeah, I can definitely get behind that. I didn't even think about weather being a contributing factor towards people moving, though I can completely understand some of them. Like if they don't like snow, they'll probably want to move further south. If they don't like the constant heat, they might want to stay out of places like Phoenix, Arizona or Death Valley. Um, and of course, if you want to avoid tornadoes, stay away from states that are mostly flat.
Well, yeah. Well, I have a brother down in Tennessee, and they've gotten a couple tornadoes in recent years, but thankfully he's managed to stay clear of them.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, yeah.
is Mount Rushmore in North or South Dakota? I want to say it's South.
I believe it's south.
Okay, I couldn't
Yeah,
remember for sure, so I thought I'd ask.
yeah. And what you were saying about the weather, I know a guy at my job who actually is from Southern California, and he was telling me the other day I was working with him. You know, you know. Well, this is actually my kind of weather because I'm from the desert.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's kind of like the reverse, I think, of what we were talking about, which is not that it's a bad thing. It's just kind of interesting.
Oh, sure. Everybody has different preferences and for different reasons. Like
Yeah.
my personal favorite type of weather usually happens during the fall, where it's usually the temperatures are around the 50s or the 60s around here. You can put on a nice pair of jeans or sweatpants and a hoodie, sit out by the fire pit, toast marshmallows.
Yeah. And that's usually when we do our Artists Unlimited shows is in the fall, like October and November.
That's also true. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Although, even then, it could still be, and because of the sort of unpredictable climate here, it could still be fairly on the hot side. I guess you never know, but
Yeah, that's definitely one drawback to being around here is that the weather can fluctuate very quickly sometimes. I I want to say this past year before I moved, there was a day where we had gotten maybe 3-ish inches of snow on the ground, maybe a little bit less. But by the end of the day, it was completely gone. Like you couldn't even tell it was there.
hmm, yeah. That's a short-lived snow right there.
Oh, absolutely, it was.
And then number 10 state that people are moving away from, reportedly, Wisconsin, which their climate and their their sort of weather situation or their geography or topography, whatever, I don't know that much about. So, yeah, yeah, that's I don't know, whatever reason, it is what it is.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, number 9 was Utah, apparently.
Huh.
Yeah. Number 8, yeah.
I was just about to say I hadn't really thought of Utah being a state that people would move away from, but I guess people would have their reasons. Looking at the article right now, uh, apparently the percentage of people moving out, at least when this article was written, was a little more than half of the residency, or
So,
something.
so like the slight majority of people there pretty much checked out.
Well, yeah, this is saying that there was a little over 2,000 total moves, and okay, now I fully understand. It's not the percentage of the entire residency, but out of all the people that moved in that state, a little more than half of them moved out of the state. Like some people still moved and stayed within the state, but more than half of them moved completely elsewhere. Now I fully understand.
And number 8, Kentucky.
I wonder why people would move out of Kentucky.
Yeah, yeah, I really have no idea.
It doesn't look like the article really states why these people move. It just gives the statistics of how many are moving and the percentage of job growth.
Yeah. Oh, well, if you want to find out more detail, it'll be in the article. I'll put up the link, everybody, so you
Yes.
can read it later. And then number 7, Ohio, which I'm pretty familiar with. It's one of those states that's come kind of a big part of my life, my family life, and it's where my brother went to college. We've passed through it multiple times, going to see family in Indiana. It's also where there's a thing there. I don't know if you've heard of this, Skyline Chili. It's like a Cincinnati chili, and they put it on hot dogs and spaghetti with cheese.
I have not heard of them, but it sounds good.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, had it on one trip. We
That's it.
like met my brother there, went there, and it was good.
All right. If the next time I drive through Ohio, I may have to check that out because usually when visiting family further south, especially when it comes to, say, Florida, we do pass through a good chunk of Ohio at some point. Um, and Ohio does kind of hold a special place to me right now because we almost adopted from there, but for reasons I won't get into because it involves very personal details, uh, that idea kind of fell through, which kind of was seen as a good thing after a little while because of events that happened in our family. But yeah, we almost adopted from there, so sentimental.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 6, Massachusetts. Yeah.
This one doesn't surprise me too much. I kind of say that because I know my parents have told me a while back Massachusetts had the nickname Taxachusetts because of the excuse me, the incredibly high uh, tax rate they had there. So if that's still a thing that they have to deal with, I wouldn't be surprised if people moved out just to steer clear of that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I haven't traveled there much, though I have, I went there once for a class trip, and one time many years ago on a family camping trip. But I don't think I know it that well. I mean, I think I know enough. I mean, uh, I've gotten a little bit of a taste of it, but I don't know. I don't feel like I'm the most acquainted.
Sure, that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And fifth apparently was Kansas.
Do you think when some of them moved out, they said they didn't think they were in Kansas anymore?
Well, if anything, they'd probably just say they don't want to be there anymore.
Yeah, probably not if they're moving out, but I'm sure that some of the people who moved out would make that Wizard of Oz reference.
Mm, yeah. Right. Number four was Connecticut. I ran. I don't really have no personal experience with the state, so don't know what to say about that.
Yeah, I'm not too knowledgeable in that myself. I'm pretty sure I've gone through Connecticut at some point, but my knowledge on the events and factors of the state itself and why people would want to move out is a little foreign to me.
All right. And number three, this is probably one of the least surprising, if not the least surprising, our very own New York.
Very true. Definitely economics plays a big factor in that. I know there have been some political figures that people just really didn't like and how they were running the state. So they moved out to avoid those people's decisions and how it was affecting everybody. Um, we've had some escalated crime rates in some areas, particularly cities. So there's a lot that goes into people moving out of this state, for sure.
Okay. A part of this particular area of Rochester is the downtown area, inner city area known as Flower City, which is reportedly one of America's 10 poorest city areas.
Right. But thankfully, especially every year, there's people that go down to that area and just do what they can to help out, whether it be repairing things or just providing food, just giving them some helpful resources.
Yeah,
Although considering they do that every year can also kind of tell you just how much they need it.
yeah, yeah, and how difficult to fix it really is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yep. Well, second was New Jersey. I suppose that might have something to do with the fact that there you can't pump your own gasoline.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a state law.
Did they say why? Because I mean, it's not that hard of a task, and I didn't think it affected anything too much.
Yeah, I've never known why. I've never even researched it.
That's an odd law to have.
Yeah,
Maybe they have their reasons, but I can't think of any decent ones.
yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I've experienced that. I've had to sit in the gas station with my family, and my- and the attendant has had to come over and put the pump in and whatever. So I've seen it for myself.
I mean, even in New York, I've seen some gas companies do that, particularly with quick fill. But yeah, I've only ever seen them do that because that's something they want to do, not necessarily because of a law.
All right. First on the list was Illinois. Uh, might have something to do, I guess, with the infamous weather of Chicago, and maybe their crime rate, whatever, in the inner city.
Was was it Chicago or was it Ohio where that really bad chemical spill happened not too long ago?
Ooh, I don't really remember that story, honestly. How
I
long
think
ago was that?
uh I want to say it was sometime earlier this year or near the end of last, but I do know it involved a train derailment that caused a lot of chemicals to go into the air and it created this big massive green cloud that kind of contaminated the rivers and such, and people were saying stay inside or get out of there if you can. Trying to remember. And I want to say it was one of those two locations.
Yeah, I just looked up. I just did some googling right now.
Okay.
Apparently, it was early February. Right, there was a train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio,
It was
uh,
Ohio.
when 38 railway cars derailed.
Yeah, I was about to say when you said Chicago, I thought it might have been Chicago where it happened. Or yeah, Chicago, Illinois, but then I thought or was it Ohio? But now we know and I feel better for knowing because I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But I mean Illinois isn't too far from Ohio, though, I don't think. Trying to remember my geography.
It's yeah, it's kind of like um, hmm, I don't know, maybe both Midwest.
Right. And if in Illinois is close enough, they might have gotten some of the aftermath of that incident. So some people might have moved out just to avoid that.
Yeah. Well, that's the list of moving away from. Let's move on to the top 10 states people are moving to.
Sure.
Number 10, Alabama.
Alabama.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know in recent years they've had some considerable college football success of like they've been like I think like recent years repetitive college national champion, University of Alabama, and yeah. In fact, I think it was like maybe the Wednesday after they won one year. Year there was a local bar that actually did a round of trivia, yeah, focused on Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and thankfully, from what I can see, the article does have some factors as to what might cause people to move there, specifically for for Alabama, excuse me, is how business tax costs are 18% below the national average.
Yeah, that may
So
be a factor.
yeah, that probably is because people are trying to save money as much as they can. So having a percentage that high could definitely contribute towards that. And like what I was saying with how most of the states that people were moving from are further north, some of the states here are further south. Not all of them, but some of them.
Yeah. Number 9, Colorado.
I wonder if some people would move there because of the Grand Canyon.
I Actually that's in Arizona, or is it both? I don't know.
I mean, it's large enough it could be, but I'm pretty sure at least part of it's in Colorado.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. 8, North Carolina, which I don't know. I think um uh, I think a friend or two of mine they've moved there from here, so they could be a big part of that.
Yeah, I can't remember which. I want to say it's North Carolina, but I believe our very own director, Mr. Wagger, moved to North Carolina. I'm pretty sure it was North, but I know for sure it was one of them.
South Carolina was number 7.
I'm sure if those two are listed back to back, it would be for pretty similar reasons.
Yeah. Right. Washington, state of Washington, not to be confused with DC, but the state of Washington, way out west, came in at number 6.
Most northwestern state borders
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that's an interesting one, especially since most of the people I know would want to move further south. So them wanting to move to one of the northernmost states kind of surprises me a little bit, but I'm sure there's reasons for that.
Yeah. Right. South Dakota, no, home of the aforementioned Mount Rushmore, came in at 5th.
Now that could be like with Colorado and the Grand Canyon, which I just did look up. At least part of it is in Colorado, but it could be a tourist thing, and maybe people just want to see it more often, so they move down there. Um, Apparently, their business costs are some of the lowest in the country, so I'm sure that's a big factor. But yeah, a lot of times it just seems like an economical thing. It's one of the biggest reasons for moving. Not always the biggest, but it often is a contributing factor.
Right. 4th is the state of Nevada. Yeah.
Do you think some people would
Which
move there because of Vegas?
that or Reno, it seems like a pretty flashy environment.
It definitely seems that way. So I'm sure it attracts a lot of people to go there, even just for visiting, and maybe people just want to be closer to it more often.
I don't know. I don't know. The vibe I kind of get from what I've seen in movies and stuff. It's going to personify the state for a little bit. It's kind of a party animal.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know how accurate that is, but all right. Idaho was 3rd.
Now, Idaho is a state I often, or rather, don't often really think about, but with them being one of the largest producers of potatoes, especially in the US, I'm sure there's some agricultural factors that go into people wanting to move there, like some sort of food process type thing, or just food in general. But yeah, like food, agricultural. I have trouble saying that word. Agricultural. There we go. Um, yeah, I'm sure there's a large agricultural reason for people moving there, but I don't know the population's mindset, so I could be wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know either. Right. And second was Oregon.
Now that kind of sits in a similar spot with me with Washington because they're right next to each other, but yeah, I don't know why people would move there specifically. That seems like an interesting choice of all the states to move to. Hmm.
Yeah. I figure because the West isn't known for as much snow or whatever, maybe.
That's also true. I mean, that does come as a double-edged sword sometimes because, like, for California especially, they've had uh, a lot of fires just because it gets so dry there, among other reasons. But still,
Yeah, I've heard like a story or two or so of some serious wildfires in California on the news. So
yeah,
yeah,
it's like a seasonal thing, but it's still not pleasant.
uh, yeah. Earthquakes, that
Yep,
too.
earthquakes are
Mm.
another big factor of people moving to California. Or no, 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 no. Not not for moving to California. Why would you want to move closer to earthquakes? But I have told people before that as an aspiring actor, I probably would at least go to LA every once in a while, if not move there. And they did say if you do that, uh, be wary of earthquakes and wildfires.
Yeah. And number one might surprise you. It's not California. It's not Arizona. It's actually way on the other side. It's Vermont.
That does surprise me. I like Vermont is like right next to us, and because of there being so many reasons of people moving out of New York, I would have been not too surprised if people would move out of places like Vermont for similar reasons.
This is the number one state they reported people are actually moving to.
Right, and that is a surprising factor. What also surprised me though is that Florida wasn't even in the top 10 because I know so many people, especially from New York, that have been or are moving to Florida.
No, people. It seems like I often hear people talk about, I want to go to California, I want to go to Florida, I want to go anywhere where the weather is not crappy, and usually I think that means the West, um, and no, actually, it's Vermont apparently.
See the crappy weather thing, that kind of surprises me only because various areas of the US have their own version of crappy weather. Like for us, it might be some really bad snowfall or the occasional windstorm. For places down south like Louisiana or Florida, it could be hurricanes. For places like Texas or California, it could be fires. It's just because it's so warm there. Um, and like I was saying earlier, flat states might have tornadoes more often. So it's like you could be leaving one state because of the bad weather there, but then you could move somewhere else entirely that has a whole different kind of bad weather.
Yeah, just don't believe everything you see.
Oh, absolutely. You definitely, especially if you're going to move into a whole different state or a whole different country, continent, what have you definitely want to do your research on where you're moving to first.
Yeah. Well, so those are the two lists, and then, like always, we have a more curious question we follow up with, and this time it's I think it was probably kind of the same kind of thing. It's another Artists Unlimited related one. And this time it was, if Artists Unlimited was looking for some new volunteer performers and they asked you for ideas, who are some people you know personally whom you would recommend?
Yeah, I definitely thought of a decent handful. And I'm not going to
Yeah,
lie, I did kind of cheat a little bit because the
yeah,
question was new volunteer performers, but I also put
right.
one or two on there of people that have been volunteer performers before and just aren't there now. So it's like
Okay.
sweeping them back.
Yeah.
But
So, who's on your list?
the first person I had thought of was our good friend Caitlin. Um, she goes, or rather, she did go to a small group with us for a while, and she has been a really good friend of mine. She's one of those people that is very considerate of other people. She really likes helping others. She really enjoys just helping people out wherever she can. And a prime example of that is just the fact that not too long ago, she went to a whole separate continent, Mozambique, Africa specifically, on a mission trip of sorts there to help those people. It's like if you're willing to go all the way to a whole different continent to help people that you've never even met, I'd be willing to bet she would love volunteering with people like those in Artists Unlimited.
My dad was talking about, you know, if you're going to hire somebody, for your workplace, eh, they got to have what he, in his words, the skill and the will. And
Yes.
from what you've just described, it sounds like Caitlin, this person is somebody who has the people skills and the people heart that would probably like fit right in.
She absolutely does. Her dedication to her work and her passions are just so incredible, so contagious that I feel like she'd be a perfect fit.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah. For my next one, I thought of, well, one of the people in the family that I'm staying with right now, he's getting married, and I thought of his fiance. And the reason for that is because she's already shown incredible interest in the theater, especially when it comes to people who have disabilities. She's sat with us to watch several of our past performances. It's like, why not take it a step further and have her be part of it?
Yeah, I know her too personally. We've been hung out with her at the
Mhm.
place you're staying at least a couple times, and so I've gotten to know her pretty well. But I had no idea how interested she actually was in that. That is cool. I mean, I know she's like taught at a local kids center or something. I know that's about all about her I've actually known. But from what you've said, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, in fact, I think it's either her senior project or some other big project she's doing in school, but I believe her subject matter is the theater and people involved in it that have disabilities. Something very close to that, if not exactly that, but it's pretty close.
Well, yeah. Well, if you want to bring me in for an interview, if you're still working on that, Emily, I'm up for it. I'm in.
I mean, I can ask her. I'll have to see the next time she's around.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably a long shot, but I'm open to it at least.
Sure.
Yeah.
Uh, then this is a general group type of answer, but I thought of several people from also, excuse me, from our small group, and I'll go into specifics with a couple of them later. But I thought of the small group in general because of several times, even before or even after you joined us, I'd been telling them about the show that we were in, that being Willy Wonka, and some of the past ones we've done before, and how we have access to DVD copies of our past performances. So I thought, why not organize a watch party with these people so they can see our previous performances if they haven't already? And they just seem so enthused with the idea and just the sheer premise of people with disabilities being able to perform, that I'm sure there is a good chunk of them that would love to interact with these people directly.
Yeah. I know at least a couple in our group, and they are on my list. I'll get to it when it's my turn, but they also have some of the performing experience, and I'll talk more about that later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then the next one I thought of is a friend I should definitely reach out to again because I haven't recently, is my good buddy Matt Bishop. He's honestly one of the first friends I ever had. And like with some people in this cast, he has a form of autism, that being I'm pretty sure it was Asperger's syndrome, but I'd have to ask him about that again. But he and I, growing up, we didn't, as far as I know too many people that thought or acted like us. And when I joined Artists Unlimited, it was a nice refresher because I then knew people that had disabilities and I was able to educate myself on the subject matter a lot better because of it. So I'm thinking if it helped me a lot to know these people, work with these people, perform with them, I'd be willing to bet that even now the same can be said for him. Maybe performing isn't his forte exactly, not something he'd be interested in, but just being part of the group somehow could be very helpful for him.
Yeah, and I think it's been somewhat helpful for me. I've only done it for a few years. I feel like every production has been better than the last, and I've slowly seen some growth in myself. And yeah, so I can tell you from experience that I feel like it has benefited me.
It's benefited you, it's benefited me. It certainly moved so many people in so many wonderful ways that I'm sure it can also be applied to several of our cast and even people in the audience. So for my next one, this is where I kind of brought in some names of people that were volunteer performers before but aren't now because they graduated and moved on. Um, I thought of the Garau family, particularly when it comes to Kyle and Carly. I thought of Kyle initially because the next show we're doing is Suzical, and he was the Cat in the Hat.
And we watched the
So
video of that.
yeah, we recently did watch that just to get a refresher course or just to introduce it to you guys.
Yeah.
Uh, and he absolutely nailed the role. And I figure since he's done this show before and he's worked with a lot of these people already, he would be a wonderful volunteer performer to have back with the cast. And the same can be said for Carly. I don't remember if she was in Susical. I don't think so, but she definitely was in a few of our performances, and for very similar reasons to Kyle, she would be a wonderful. She'd be a welcome return to this cast.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen Kyle in a couple of local school shows, including one that my brother was also involved in. And I think he has enough of the skill. If he's got that and the will, then no, I say welcome him. Sure.
I definitely agree.
Yeah.
And the same can be said for my next entry because she was also here before. Sabrina, I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. I think it's like
Mm,
Sapor or
that's what I
Sapor,
thought.
something like that. Yeah. Um, but she's done several shows with us before. She was Mary Poppins when we did that production.
I was there to see that.
Yep. She was Gertrude in Seussical, the bird with the feather tail. Um, and I want to say she did at least one or two others before she moved on. But I also thought of her because at one point she was featured in one of our promotional videos,
Right.
like the one that usually plays at the beginning of the performances. And she was just talking about how everyone is so happy for everybody else. Like they're so supportive of each other. And she perfectly reflected that when she was here. She would always check in on people, make sure they were okay. She was excited for other people when they were cast in their roles. It's like that's the kind of thing we need in this cast. And we sure do have it. But she was a shining beacon of that. So she also would be a welcome return to this group.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if she couldn't, I feel like we could we could all if we're really willing, try to be that to somebody.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the same can be said. I just thought of this one. Um, like she wasn't on my list initially, but I'm glad I thought of her.
Hmm.
Olivia Gray.
Yep, whom I've met.
Yeah, she was. In fact, I'd still say she is a wonderful actress. Uh, in 2 consecutive years, she played the female lead. Like when we did Beauty and the Beast, she was Belle. The following year, when we did Wizard of Oz, she was Dorothy. So she has shown she can play those kinds of roles on a consistent basis, and she's shown very similar um, consideration towards this cast as, say, Sabrina or Carly. And anytime she's come back to see the show, we have a good laugh. She talks about how much she misses everybody and how much she just loves the cast in general. And she's even talked about possibly coming back, not maybe necessarily as a performer, but maybe to help behind the scenes in some places. So just even the sheer idea, it's like, why not?
Yeah, yeah. I never really got the opportunity to work on any of these shows with her, but if I did, I would definitely be open.
Sure. Then the last two, I think, are two that we kind of shared because we both ended up writing these down. Um, both of them are from our small group. Both of them are people that we are great friends with for one reason or another. And the first I thought of was our friend Shannon. I thought of her because she shows wonderful compassion to other people, and that is a must when being part of this group. Because if you don't, then it's not going to be pretty later on when you're working with these people, which is a shame because these people, they just need that compassion. They need people to have patience with them because then every time I've seen people do that, they learn to love these people. And I feel like Shannon has those qualities to do so. And she's shown she's very caring, very considerate, just a very loving person in general. And a prime example of that is that the other day she invited me and by extension the small group to a prayer night that happened just last night, and I went, and it was such a powerful moving experience which she was very much a part of. It's like if she can be that much of a positive influence in that type of setting, I'm sure the same can be said for a group like Artists Unlimited.
Yeah, like if you're doing some kind of volunteering work like that, just to you know build a resume to get yourself in a good college or whatever. I'm not saying I know any people who have done that, but um, I figure sooner or later it's going to show, and there's going to be some tension or whatever. But from what you've described, that is a choice I think I can get behind.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then the other one is one that we also both wrote down from what it looks like, which is our good friend Esther. I don't know if I can go into as much detail as you could because I think you've known her for longer, but from my personal experiences with her, she's got a wonderful heart that could be reflected with her interactions with this cast should she ever meet or work with them. I can't remember if she or somebody else that I'm thinking of in that group said she's either seen the shows or expressed interest in them or has worked with people like those found in artists before, but she and I would say by extension her brother would be fun people to have in this group.
Um, yeah, both of them are delight. Both Esther and Josh. I was just, I constantly, talk with Josh when I see him at our church, and he's definitely always has a very positive vibe about him. I'll say that, and just feel feels good whenever I'm talking to him, and Esther too is got the nice positive upbeat vibe, and she is fun to be with as well.
For sure. I've only known them for a short amount of time, but I've had nothing but good experiences with them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So is that all your list?
That was my list. Yep.
Yeah, yep. And so I had quite a number too, and at the top of my bullet points, I thought about my two siblings, my two younger siblings, my brother and my sister. Mainly because they have experience in that. They've both done school theater in the past, and and so that was pretty much probably the reason bigger than anything. So
All right. Yeah, I did think of adding my own siblings to the list, especially since they also did some theater shows growing up. But from what I've gathered in recent years, they seem to enjoy more um, spectating or like watching the shows as opposed to being part of it. Because they've gone on to separate careers that are not tied to theater per se, but they still enjoy watching the shows. In fact, my brother, along with his wife and daughter, they had just come from Virginia all the way to New York just to see one production of Willy Wonka.
hey, they can't miss that one. You were the lead.
It definitely was a contributing factor, I'm sure, but it's like they both had come to see multiple shows before, but just the fact that they came from a whole different state to see it was it helped me a lot.
Yeah, sure. And even if they don't want to perform on stage, we could probably use some extra techies on crew. I know your brother is a computer engineer.
Yes.
I don't know if he would be able to utilize that gift in a way that would actually contribute to the program. I don't know. I don't know. We probably have to figure that out. But if it could work, yeah, I say go for it.
Yeah, he might be able to help with the booth
Yeah.
during the live shows and whatnot. My sister is a mechanical engineer, so she might have been able to help with some of the building process. Um, but that's if they were still in this state, and they're both in different states entirely now, so that probably wouldn't happen, unfortunately.
Oh well. But if it did, which again is a long shot, but
Hypothetically speaking, it could be fun.
possibly, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I also, well, like you did, I listed Esther Dykstra and Shannon Kirkpatrick, part of our Monday night small group.
Mhm.
Um, it's like I haven't really. I'll admit I haven't really seen the full range of their talents. I know they both have singing experience. They both have got the singing skill. I mean, I know I've heard Esther sing. She's got an old Instagram video up of her singing and playing piano. So I know how good she is at least. I mean, I mean, I know Shannon does like music ministry singing, but I haven't had the chance to hear her yet, so I don't know what exactly she sounds like. But I'm sure it's good though.
Well, yeah, with the prayer night that we had just last night, it was also it started out as like an hour or two of just worship, and I happened to be within earshot of her. I could pick her voice out of the group, and not to sound weird or cliche, but she really does have the voice of an angel.
Oh, well, that's a good sign then.
Absolutely.
Not that I ever doubted, but saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. And they're both good friends, and I think feel like uh, just simply from experience, I think they'd be a fit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And one, s- I guess you might describe this as a sort of unconventional choice, but um, I thought of a guy who is part of the church we attend. His name is Dave Ray. Technically, his day-to-day job is an engineer. He's like an engineering director, but he also has done a lot of service hosting at the church and has kind of done uh, appeared in a bunch of scripted videos. And he's got this really positive, upbeat energy, and he seems very comfortable with it and seems to have a lot of fun with it. Uh, so maybe a long shot because he's older and he's got a family and all, but if it were to work out, I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which person at that church Dave is.
Yeah,
I'm better with faces than with names, so maybe if I saw him,
yeah,
I would be able to pick him out. But for now, I'll have to go off of your word. And by what you're
yeah,
telling me, he does seem like he could be a wonderful volunteer for this group. Maybe not necessarily a volunteer performer, though I'm sure if he were to perform, he'd be absolutely fun to watch. But I'm sure in some volunteer way, he would be more than welcome.
yeah. Right. And then I've thought of a couple of younger people whom I haven't talked to that much lately, but I'm nonetheless I nonetheless consider them friends from here in Greece, New York, and they went to a school in the Greece district. Caitlin Baldwin and Shad Hilton. I've seen they both have a lot of performing experience, and Chad is sort of independent or aspiring filmmaker, and he also loves acting and singing, and so does Caitlin, and they're just really good at it too.
See, I don't remember Chad too much, but I wonder if we're thinking of the same Caitlin Baldwin because a few years back, the year that artist did Mary Poppins, earlier that year, I performed that same show in the same theater, no less, with a different theater group that at the time was known as Rappa, and a girl named Caitlin Baldwin, which I think was also spelled the same way, was Mary Poppins in that show. And I think she's been off doing other theater stuff now. I think during this past summer, she did a production of something called Bad Babes of Broadway.
Yeah, that sounds like the same one. I've seen some stuff like that.
Yeah, so if we're talking about the same one, which it
Yeah,
certainly sounds like we are,
yeah,
then I 100% agree with you.
yeah, yeah. Sure. Yeah. And you said you did kind of a cheat earlier, but well, full confession, I did too.
Okay.
But I'm not exactly apologetic for it though, and I don't think I need to be.
No,
But
you absolutely don't have to.
no, no, thank you. But yeah. But I thought of a couple sisters who haven't necessarily, as far as I know, actually performed in the group, but have at least assisted with choreography with the group in the past.
Sure.
And I'm talking specifically about Dominique and Jessica D'Amico.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
Those two were always fun to have around. And yeah, I think they focused more on choreography than anything else. But I know they can perform because while I haven't seen any personally that I can think of, I know at the school they attended, they did some shows there. I think Mamma Mia was one of them.
Yep, I saw that one. I saw them in Cinderella, Shrek, when they did the middle school production for
Okay.
Athena Middle School, which actually my sister had a little role in.
Oh,
Yeah. So yeah. So in a way, it was kind of full circle when I came to the artist group because it was something because it was a show we did Shrek my first year. That was a show my sister had done. So and a lot of those same kids who had been in that middle school production were on stage with us in this one.
so it definitely helped doing a show that you were familiar with and doing it with people that you already knew.
Well, that I already knew of anyway.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So yeah. So in a way, that did make it a special experience for me. Getting to work with these kids who had considerably aged since then, but they were nonetheless cool to be around.
Sure.
And uh, mm, yep, and both the D'Amico twins play pretty big roles in the Athena show, and they assisted with our choreography that year. And yeah, and yeah, and I don't know. I have a high regard for those two.
Oh yeah, I just had a blast performing with them, or at least working with them. So it would be a nice experience to see them again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I also thought of a number of past alumni from my school that I've seen in multiple shows. I feel like a reason that I ended up getting into Artists Unlimited because I'd seen my brother do so many shows, and
Hmm.
so I thought of a number of people who had done it with him, or some with him, some without, and I take I feel like I'll just name names right now, like Mackenzie Wright, Tony Ortiz Potter, Missy Fiola, Courtney O'Gorman, Sarah Deerstein, Martina DeLuccio, whose dad is on our church staff,
Hmm.
Lexi Glykoff, Maria Brunden, and Jessica Drew. I thought of all those.
For the same reason or for different reasons?
I think the same basic reason. I've seen, how skilled they are, or how entertaining they can be when they really put the effort in. And I don't know what else to say except they've got the skill, and if they've got the will too, I think they could do it good.
I was about to say they got the experience under their belt, so that's a good place to start.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And several of them have been pretty good friends of mine, and yeah, they've been supportive and very friendly.
Well, that's certainly always a plus. And if they're respectful and friendly to you, I,
Yeah,
you and me, I would imagine that they would do the same for the cast.
hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But to prepare for this episode, I actually reached out to some Facebook friends, and I personally put on a post. I think I put it on the More Layers Facebook and my personal one as well.
Hmm.
I asked I asked them, what are your fave places to travel and where would you like to go? And I got a number of good responses, and I thought we could kind of discuss them a little bit.
Sure.
So, so one person said, and they like to go to a place in Mexico called oh, I don't know if they misspelled it, Rivera or Riviera Maya in Mexico again.
Okay.
Yeah. And they said they have family in Bolzano, Italy, so they want to go there. Yeah.
All right. Well, I just looked this up, and it looks like it is actually spelled Riviera, but yeah,
Yeah.
I personally haven't been anywhere outside of North America, and I think technically Mexico is part of North America, although it's often just known as Central America. Um, yeah, I haven't been to Mexico. That'll definitely be a place on my list.
Yeah. Yeah. Another said their favorite place to travel is New York City or Tennessee, well, both of which I've been to.
Hmm.
I take, I will say, let's say my one visit to New York City was kind of a bit of a throw for a loop. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't realize how crazy it was.
Oh yeah.
But I have been in Tennessee at least 3 times, and I can say, hey, it's been overall a good experience. And, I went to Nashville twice because my brother's down there. I've been to Sevierville for one. Actually, the Christmas season, the same year we did Shrek the Musical, my first year.
Oh
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I know I've been to New York City a couple times before, and I've seen the Statue of Liberty.
yeah,
I haven't been on the island where it is, but I have actually seen it. Uh, Tennessee, I think I've driven through. Haven't really done anything crazy there, but like you've definitely been there more often than I have, especially since your brother's down there.
yeah.
Um, so I'm sure you could speak better of the state than I could.
Yeah. I will say, uh, apparently they don't have as good plow service from what I've heard. So
Like
a little snow would be enough to shut everything down from what I hear.
I think a lot of southern states, especially like the further south you go, that can definitely happen because they don't get snow often enough where it feels warranted to get the more advanced snow plows or something to get rid of the snow. So when it does fall and it gets worse, they don't really have the means to deal with it. So they just recommend people stay inside.
Yeah. Well, no, interestingly, the next response, um, the first couple's favorite places to travel that they listed were New York City and Nashville. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they also said Topsail Island, which I had to look it up. It's in North Carolina. Not
Okay.
familiar with that. And the Villages, which I believe is like a predominantly senior community, I think, in Florida. I know I've seen it advertised to like give like seniors like unlimited free golf or something.
Is it just called the Villages?
Yeah, believe it is.
Yeah, just typing that in, I'm seeing several connections to Florida. So I guess that's where it is. It seems like it's some sort of retirement home or resort style living type of thing. All right. Yeah, I'd never heard of the place, at least not from what I remember, but it seems like it would be a good place to go.
They went on to say, I'd like to travel to Europe and go to London, Paris, Greece, and Italy.
I'm noticing a few people have said they want to go to Italy.
Yeah, yeah,
And I certainly would like to go there at some point, partly because I have family over there, but it just seems like a fun place to go. I could explore some of my heritage. Um, and most of my family's been there before, so I feel like I should get my turn at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. They also said they'd like to travel Australia, Tokyo, and probably New Zealand.
That is a good array of places to go to. I have said to people before that Tokyo is on my list of places to go as well, partly because I just like Asian culture, like their art, their music, and whatnot. And that especially goes for places like Japan. Uh, so if I ever go to Japan, I definitely would at least stop in Tokyo at some point. Uh, so I can definitely relate to this person.
If you asked me right now to pick a foreign country to go, I would probably also say Japan. I'd probably at least want to visit Tokyo because of like the more advanced technology over
Sure.
there, and and then maybe spend a little time in Okinawa because that's apparently like the birthplace of karate, at least as we know it in America. So,
Okay.
and I'm a fan of the show Cobra Kai, as I've talked about before on this podcast. So, yeah,
Maybe some point we'll travel to Tokyo together. Who knows?
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. We probably should.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Another guy said, my favorite place to travel is Cleveland, which I've also visited and been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum. You know, my brother and I were actually just talking about that the other day on the phone and saying, we should go there. There's like, they've, since we went there last, there's like a Beatles exhibit, an interactive thing. So, um, something we've thought about.
All right.
Yeah. They also said they might also like Texas and Hollywood. Yeah, sure.
I definitely would want to go to Hollywood at some point, especially being an aspiring actor. Texas, I haven't considered too much. I know that one of my favorite YouTube groups, Dude Perfect, is down in Texas. So maybe I would go down there just to see if I could meet them if they don't go to some nearby convention. Uh, but other than that, I haven't really thought about Texas too much.
Yeah, we almost went to Los Angeles because my brother was wanting to go to some kind of, I guess, some kind of tech or music tech related convention or something that was going to be happening there. But for whatever reason, that fell through. So,
Sure.
hmm, yeah, yeah. Next, another person said Germany, France, and the US have been our favorite destinations thus far. Don't really remember who said that. 42 of 50 states overnight stay and more in most. Some special trips were Kodiak, Alaska, and Maui, Hawaii.
Yeah, props to them for being to so many different states, almost all of them.
Yeah.
I wonder though if they specifically said the USA as one of their favorite destinations, does that indicate that they're not from the USA?
Hmm. Or maybe they're not in the United States anymore. I really don't remember who said that.
That's an interesting thought, though, or maybe it just means that they are in the US and they've been to several states in the US, in fact, most of them, but I don't know who said it, so I can't say for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking if I had to pick a place within the United States to visit, I think maybe New Orleans. I mean, kind of like nice, from what I understand, a nice little river setting. I kind of like seeing the water, being out on the water, and I kind of like jazz a little bit. It's pretty cool. So I think I might like it.
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that myself too much, but I'm sure I'll stop there at some point.
Yeah. Another person said, "I love Italy. I want to go to Egypt and Israel."
I wonder. So, like, there's Italy again. For Egypt and Israel, again, I don't know who said this, so I can't say for sure. But I wonder if they want to go to those specific places because of their biblical significance, or even just their historical significance.
Yeah, the biblical thing, I think, yeah, was kind of a guess I just had in my mind right now, but could be anything.
Oh, absolutely, it could. There are countless reasons for going pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
But just the fact that they said those two locations specifically, I wonder if it's for the same reason.
Yeah. Well, and someone else said, simply said this was their whole answer, didn't really specify. The
Okay.
British Isles.
Okay. I'm assuming the British Isles are in or around Britain. Um,
Yeah, I guess so.
or is yeah, some surrounding area, but I haven't been there myself because, like I said, I haven't been outside of North America as of now. Um, yeah, I definitely would want to go to London at some point, and I'm sure if the British Isles are nearby, then I would probably want to stop there too.
Yeah, and then finally, somebody said, I always wanted to travel like places in Europe, like Italy, France, Ireland, London, England. So, yeah.
Yeah, those are definitely popular answers. Like if I talk to people saying, "Hey, where would you want to go to if even only once in your life?" And they often do say places like Italy, Ireland, France, partly to see the Eiffel Tower, uh, London, England, of course. So, like, really, a lot of those are popular answers, so those don't surprise me.
Right. They also said Mexico, Jamaica, more places in the Caribbean, possibly Vegas, and maybe San Diego.
San Diego. Okay, so that's the
Yeah.
California area,
Yeah.
Vegas.
Yep.
Well, they said
Yep.
Vegas again, so I guess they've been there before, so they probably would want to go back at some point. Why not?
Right.
Um, Jamaica would be an interesting one. I think I think it was our small group leader. He went to Jamaica or some nearby location to there for a friend's wedding.
Yeah, I think you might have talked to us about it one week.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Mexico, I'm not sure where in Mexico I'd go, although I definitely would like to visit at some point. Vegas, I'm sure I'll be down that way at some point for one reason or another, if for no other reason tied to acting. The Caribbean, haven't thought about it too much, so I can't really say one way or the other, but um, I'm sure they have their reasons, and if they do go, I hope they have a wonderful time.
Well, so yeah, that's well, thanks to everyone for those responses, and thanks to all of you for streaming this. You can find us on Facebook, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And you know, I'll ask a question for next time, see if I can get some more responses to it. But anytime you want to ask a question or leave a comment, please feel free to do so.
It really meant the world to us that people are interacting with this podcast now because we love answering questions. We love interacting with people and responding to what they have to say. So the fact that there were so many people that did that for this episode, really it really means a lot to us. So thank you all to those who said anything in response to that question. If you want to do the same, you'll have opportunities in the future. But yeah, any interaction that we have with our audience is wonderful. So please keep the questions coming. Or if we ask you a question, please feel more than free to answer. And I'm sure we'll feature it in an episode. We just can't wait to hear from you.
Well, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you again soon. And yeah, have a good day, everybody.
Take care.